Okay, we are live, and this is session number 2, talking about 6 figures and beyond, which I love the way the cover turned out.
Beautiful.
It looks great. I also love the way that the book turned out, as far as just having so many phenomenal leaders as we continue to perfect this process. If you watch session number 1, I briefly talked about how this is like a conference, your convention in a book, where you get the very, very best speakers. The difference is imagine having a convention from 20 plus companies where you took the very best speaker from each company. You said, hey, can you please give us a TED Talk? And you created the event of all events. Well, that's what we did for this book, where we've got 24 plus authors, short and sweet, straight to the point. They had to cut out all fluff because there's just not room for everybody to write a book when everybody's writing a chapter as they go. So I've loved it. I'd love to be able to, I think I've been through it 3 different times already now, as I get to study all the different chapters. So I brought in a couple more of these incredible co-authors that I want you to hear from. And they're going to give you a little preview to their chapter, a little background as we go. And so, Angie, we're going to start with you and give us the 30-second background, because every single person needs to know that every leader in this particular book is very, very successful. We didn't choose people that are thinking about it or trying it. We chose people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? They know exactly what it takes. So give us 30 seconds. And then after that, I'd love for you to give us a preview to your specific chapter, as everything here is relating to 6 figures and beyond.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on today. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of this incredible book with you and, so many other incredible co-authors. It's just been so fun to read and see everyone's different, takes on different ways to build a network marketing business. So a little bit about me. I am 49 years old. I'm a mom of 4, and from ages 8 all the way up to 30. And when my husband and I decided to have our youngest son, who is 8 years old, that was when network marketing entered the picture. He has a rare genetic disorder, and I had been in the pharmaceutical industry for about 10 years, and I knew that I wanted to be home. I was been a corporate mom my entire life, worked very hard, long hours, long commutes. But I knew that when we got, the diagnosis or the possible diagnosis, that I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be able to go to all the appointments. I didn't want to have to feel guilty. And I missed that with my older kids. So lo and behold, network marketing popped in the picture from a Facebook post. And I caught the vision very, very quickly. And that was in 2016. And I knew that if I just stuck with it, that if I just did the work, that it would eventually work for me. And I remember when I first started, my sponsor at the time said, how long are you willing to give this? And I said, as long as it takes. And she said, well, you probably need to give this at least minimum 5 years. And I'm like, okay, well, coincidentally, that's exactly about when it happened for me. It was actually last year, the beginning of 2020, that I made the decision. So that was what really did it for me. That was the change for me. And that's what I talk about in my chapter, was how to build a network marketing business while you're working a full-time corporate job. And I was working 8 to 10 hours a day. I was commuting 2 hours a day. And a lot of people ask me, what was it? Like, what was it that changed last year that you were able to actually leave the corporate world and do network marketing full time? And, I'd had some success in previous companies that I was with in previous years. But it wasn't until last year that I made it past that 6-figure mark. And when people started asking me that, I had to take, heart to heart and think about it. Like, what? I should have turned my notifications off. Sorry, they're kind of distracting me. But what was it? What was it that changed last year? And it really was the decision. And I talk about that in my chapter, because I think so many people are looking for the magic sauce, the magic script, the magic strategy, right? And they can have all those things. They can take this book and they can get all of this amazing content out of this book. But if they don't do the action, if they don't put in the work, if they don't really make the decision to go all in on what they're doing and believe in what they're doing, then they're just not going to find the success.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of a couple different things that you said. And the first thing is your sponsor set a 5-year commitment. And it's really interesting to have that type of perspective, because most people get in this, and even though they know it's not a get rich type of program, get rich quick type of program, in the back of their minds, I still think people are still hoping, and they're still thinking in their minds, because you see it by their actions. When people quit after 6 months and said it didn't work, I think, well, no wonder it didn't work, because if you quit after 6 months, you actually never really were truly committed. That's not how you would run a real business. People don't open up businesses and close them after 6 months. Very, very rarely. You're all in. You're committed. They understand most traditional businesses take 3 years to even turn a profit. Mm-hmm. And so having that perspective is so important, because, you know, I remember John Maxwell talking about this just in life in general, and things we focus on is, and this business the same. It's not a sprint, nor is it a marathon. It's a lot of short races where sometimes you sprint, sometimes you walk, sometimes you jog, because if we have too much of a long-term perspective, we're not going to have short-term urgency. And if we have too much of short-term perspective, right, we're going to burn ourselves out. And so it's those constant short races that you have that. And when you talk about the word decide, think about the second part of that word, CIDE. That stands to kill, right? Suicide, homicide, pesticide. Decide, you killed the option as you go. And now you narrow the focus where you no longer focus on the problems, right? You're focused on the solutions. And Angie goes through that, because yes, successful people just do the basics better. And you have to really master those basics as you go. So I appreciate that, and appreciated all of your chapters. It's just so fun for me to go through over and over as you are writing them, and then watching the process, and then go through again at the very end. So at least 3 times minimum for each chapter. So I love that. So we're talking right now, 6 Figures and Beyond, the newest, hottest book in the network marketing profession. I always recommend, first and foremost, go to these co-authors. Many of them already sold all of their books, but they'll get more. It also is in the description there as well. And also it is on Amazon, but go to the co-authors first. I want to make sure I take care of them, as I'm a collaborator. I like taking care of my peeps. So Lynn, it's been a minute, right? We got to hang out at the mastermind. That was fun. Was that not quite a year ago, or maybe almost a year ago, which was super fun, and I absolutely enjoyed your section of the book. So why don't you give us the quick recap on your background, followed with the preview to your chapters. We're talking about 6 Figures and Beyond, and each one of these leaders gave some of their best tips and strategies to help you to achieve that 6 figures and beyond.
Thanks, Rob. I'm so excited to be here. And I have to really thank you so much for being patient with us. For me, this is my first time co-authoring a book, and the process of going through it, Rob made it so easy to do, Rob and Carrie, and super appreciate that. I mean, my next door neighbor is an author. She's written 5 books, and I was telling her the process going through it with you. And she's like, oh my gosh, that is so much easier than the traditional way, So thank you so much. Appreciate it. So I'm Lynn Cooper, and I am a registered nurse now 35 years. And, if you had told me even 15 years ago that I would be a full-time network marketer, I would have said you're crazy. I did things traditionally, got married, had a son who's getting married in 2 weeks. Can't believe it. But, I did the traditional, what we were programmed, right? And those things in our head, what we were taught since we were young. This is what you do. You go to college, you get a job. I chose nursing because I was like, oh, there's always lots of jobs there. Pay off my debt and continue to work for the next 40 years, right? And then retire. And then about 2011, 10 years ago, a friend of mine introduced me to a product and I had results on it. And people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh man, this is easy. At the time, I was working full time in the ER and just did this as a part-time thing, get my products for free, maybe some extra or whatever. Never really intended to go into this full time. But then I started getting hooked with it. And I was like, oh man, I could do this. I started studying the people at the top and I'm like, I'm going to do this. And it became distributor of the year in 2013. But unfortunately, that comp plan wasn't set up for the average person to make the money, And so I kind of like just sat in the background with it. And then I had my own problem. I had a cervical spine surgery a couple of years ago, and the neurosurgeon accidentally paralyzed my right vocal cord and created all kinds of airway issues. So I was looking for a solution for my own problems, and along came another product that did amazing results within 24 hours, and my passion got lit up. And I was like, I am all in this all the way. And it's been now 3 years with that company, and super excited to be amongst this crowd. I focused on, one of the things I realized, and it was really just this past year that I realized, I was like, Lynn, all those years that you worked as an ER nurse, you were like interviewing people, right? You're looking for their problems and coming up with solutions, you and the doctor, and it kind of made me realize that, we're really consultants, right? Not just recruiters. People kind of like run away when you say the word recruit. But when you are given valuable information to somebody based on their needs, they feel your heart and that you really care about them. And that's what it's really all about. So, I wrote about shifting your mindset from recruiter to consultant because I'd rather talk to a consultant than a recruiter, right? Who likes that used car salesman? It's all about educating your prospects and giving them the right recommendations based on what they told you, what their needs were. So I love that we can use that same concept with this, that we can interview our prospects, right? Talk with them, build that relationship, find out what their problems are and what we can provide. Just sharing our story, other people's stories and whatnot. So I wrote 5 steps on how to become a badass consultant in network marketing. And basically, in short, is just building rapport, giving a full disclosure, letting them know you're not going to sell something that they don't need or want. You help them with their product selection, getting, all the information before you make your recommendations, right? It's so important that you don't just jump in on it to try and sell, and then close. Many in network marketing, they freak out about this part. And I think it's the most fun part of the whole process. And if you do the first 3 steps correctly, it's going to be super easy to, help them with that. And then the follow-up, so many people forget to follow up. So thanks, Rob. I'm excited. There's 275 pages of goodness in this book, you guys, with 23 other authors and it's a great book. So definitely get it. If you're one of my friends, get it through me or the other ladies, get it through us first.
Yeah, just going through that and talking about it, because recruiting is an overwhelming word, right? It's like super scary for so many people. And as you think about this whole concept and process, is you said one phrase that I thought was so interesting when you talked about interviewing the prospect. And when you truly become a consultant, you understand that phrase of questions are the answers. And sometimes it's like the analogy I give is you're listening to 103.3, let's say it's a radio station, and you're listening to it and you can't hear anything. It's pure static, right? There's no music or anything like that. Sometimes that little fine tune where you turn it to 103.5, now all of a sudden the music's crystal clear. The signal's there, right? It's exciting now. You can hear it. But sometimes we're not that far off, but we feel like we are. And you don't know which style, which personality, which person is going to connect and resonate with you. Just like I said, at a convention, you never know which person's talk, right? Which person's strategy, which person's story will connect with you, that will make that little fine tune, that will make that shift to help you go to the next level. And that's why we did everything just short and sweet, right? So that every person could come in and share that. So thank you so much, Lynn. Lori, what's happening? I know you've been doing an insane amount of personal development the last 20 plus years. You're always heavily investing in yourself, doing like new programs, new certifications, all the good stuff as you go. And I know especially the last year, you've been doing a ton of that. So I was so excited to have you as well in this book. So let our audience know a little bit as we're talking six figures and beyond. Let them know a little bit about yourself, your experience along with your chapter. Let's give them a preview to the movie, a preview to the book.
Yeah. I'm so excited to be on here. Thank you, Rob. Like, I feel so honored to be part of this book amongst all of these others, like incredible leaders. And to say I'm an author now, that's super exciting. So I have been in network marketing for 20 years, and I've only been with 2 companies that time. And I have built both companies to the top level of the compensation plans. And there is a method, there's a method to the madness. And so, you know, my passion really became, I with my first company, I did a lot of hustling. I did a lot of, you know, letting my business overtake my life. And so when they closed, and I'm one of these people that I just don't really move around. I stick with what I'm doing typically, just loyal, I guess you would say. And so when that company closed, I was devastated. However, it gave me an opportunity to really make some decisions when I started my next company, of how I wanted to do things. And about that time, I really started diving into mindset. I have a big mindset story, but that'll be for another day. But I started diving into it. And so when I wrote this chapter, it was really, I wanted to give solid information about how I was able to build even faster than I did previously. And that's really what I did with my second company. And a lot of that comes down to my mindset. You know, one of my top skills, if you have ever done like the Gallup skills or whatever, strengths, one of them, my top skill is maximizer. And so I always like to try to find the quickest way to do things. So when I learned that, you know, that success in network marketing is 5% skills and 95% mindset, I'm like, okay, so we're going to maximize our time and we're going to dive into mindset. And that's really what I did. So fast forward a couple of years ago, I walked into the store, and on the wall of the store, there was a sign that said, "Be brave, not perfect." And I don't know, it caused me to pause on that particular day. And I'm like, be brave, not perfect. And I feel like I've heard that before, but I don't know that it completely resonated with me the way it did on that particular day. And I thought to myself, what if my whole team was brave and not perfect? Like, what would happen to our team? And I knew it would explode, right? I knew it would explode because the reality is that I had a ton of rock stars on my team, but they didn't believe that about themselves. And so with that, like, I got this inspiration to do a 30-day challenge on my team, encouraging them to be brave and take action and not be perfect about it. So take the actions, even if the situation wasn't perfect, or maybe you didn't know every single thing, whatever that looked like. And then we actually celebrated that all month long. And it was a game changer in our business. As a matter of fact, to this day, that was, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. To this day, people will still post in our group, "I want to share my be brave, not perfect moment." Like, it totally stuck with them. And so anyway, my chapter is really all about kind of dissecting, you know, what is brave? What does that even mean? What does it mean to be brave? And then fear, you know, what is fear? Why do we feel fear? And how can we, you know, move through it? Because what we know is on the other side of fear is freedom, right? And everybody feels fear. I feel fear. I'm sure Rob feels fear. Like, we all, I know he does, actually. we all feel fear as we move into different levels that we've never been. And people just don't understand that. And so when they start to understand it, then they can start to move through it. And I tackle perfectionism in this chapter. You know, perfectionism was a big thing for me. Everything was perfect all the time, you know, and all that was my lack of self-esteem. And I didn't realize it 100%. I knew that my self-esteem my self-image was not what it should be. But I tell a little story in the book of how how the moment came to me where I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've got to do something about this. And really that's when everything started to change for me, when I could actually see myself as the person that I was expecting to go to, the heights that I was expecting to go to. For a long time, I couldn't see myself being that way. And so anyway, I give some really solid steps on how to start seeing yourself as that successful person that match your goals that you've set for yourself. And so anyway, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I covered a lot in this little chapter, but I talk about getting things done quickly and easily, and you know what it looks like to utilize a power hour. And I'm trying to remember everything that I covered, but those are probably the main tips that I cover in this chapter. And you know, I hope it's a huge blessing to whoever reads it.
So. Yeah, it's so important because I got this quote right here that I'm looking at, and this has been my quote I've really been focusing on. I've had it up here for 3 weeks, and it says, "Maintaining energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. Ooh. The power of full engagement."
Yes.
And I'm thinking of all the things you ladies are talking about, and it all comes back to that. Everything they're teaching, and they're giving you strategies to be able to achieve that energy, which is really, that is the key, that is the foundation. And as I hear, you know, some of the things you're talking about, be brave, not perfect. I know, you know, you and I are the exact same on many of the personality tests, Lori.
Yes.
And it's like, I was the same. And I've shared that before, you know, I shared it in the Game of Conquering, and some of the stupidest, littlest things that I just wouldn't do because I felt like if I'm going to do it, I got to be great at it. So a lot of things I wouldn't even start. I wouldn't even try. I mean, I share how Amen. I never even danced once my entire life till I had a daddy-daughter dance, and I couldn't turn down my daughter. It was like the first time in my life I danced, and it was like 3 years ago. And some people are like, wait, are you dead serious? Because it's these limiting beliefs that we create. And I just had this fear of not being great at something, which made me better at certain things, but also made me so much worse at so many. That's why it took me 8 years to write my first book and 2+ years to write my second. And I've gotten better as I do it. But it's just important that all these leaders, they're vulnerable. They've shared some of their stories, every single one of them. You know, you just heard from them and what they've gone through. And that's what's so phenomenal. You don't know what fine-tune is going to change everything for you, because mindset will eat skills and systems for breakfast. And we're going to give you both. We're going to give you mindset. We're going to give you skills. We're going to give you systems. We're going to give you strategies. It's all going to come together. You've heard all these leaders here, Lori, just say, like, you know, I covered so much in such a little amount. That's how they all feel, because that's what we had to do. That was the style. Cut out all the fluff, right?
Exactly.
And put all the good stuff in. That's what my wife does as well. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the last 2 books that I wrote, she took out 1/3 of the book. She's like, yeah, no one wants to hear that. I'm like, what? I thought that was good. She's like, nah, like, just get to the point here. I'm like, well, say it nicer. Come on. But it's important that we do that. But I just want to thank you 3 for coming on and sharing that and giving people a preview to this phenomenal book that I know will make a difference. I told the other co-authors that I did the first session with that you will have people that will reach out to you 6 months, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that talk about the impacts that your particular chapter had. So go get the book. Go get it. Yes. Go get it. Go get it. I promise you, the only way that this book won't help you is if you don't read it. And number 2, if you read it and you don't implement it. There's plenty of strategies, and find 1 or 2 things of the most important strategies for you and go implement those and make them happen. So thanks so much, ladies, for being on and sharing
Thank
some
you.
of your story, background,
you.
and perspective and insights.
Thank you, Rob.